You wake up in the morning, but something feels incomplete. Your body moves, your routines carry on, the world rushes around you. Yet deep inside, you sense it. A silence, a veil, a nagging dissonance you can't name. You are alive, but not awake. Look closer. People around you laugh, work, argue, scroll endlessly, and chase their carefully rehearsed dreams. But beneath the noise, beneath the glitter, an unspoken agreement binds them all. Do not question too deeply. Do not look too closely. Do not awaken from the trance we call normal life. This is the strange paradox of existence. You believe yourself free, yet every step you take feels choreographed. You make choices, but do those choices truly belong to you? Or are they scripts handed down by family, culture, authority, and the invisible machinery of society? And here lies the unsettling contradiction. Almost everyone suspects, at least once in their lives, that they are living inside an illusion. Yet almost no one ever wakes up. Why? Is it fear? Fear that to awaken is to lose the comfort of belonging? Is it inertia? The dead weight of habits and social conditioning? Or is it something deeper? Something woven into the very architecture of the human psyche? A mechanism designed to keep you asleep so the dream of society can continue uninterrupted. Carl Jung once wrote that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. And perhaps that is the truth you feel pressing against your chest late at night, when the world is quiet and the mask slips just enough for the raw face of reality to show. But here is the haunting question. If so many sense the lie, why do so few escape it? Consider this. A prison is not built of walls, chains, or guards. The prison is invisible. It is constructed from beliefs you never questioned, from stories repeated so often they hardened into reality, from subtle agreements you signed without even knowing the contract existed. You were told what success looks like, and so you chase it. You were told what failure means, and so you fear it. You were told what happiness should feel like, and so you measure your life against someone else's definition. What if none of it was yours? What if the most terrifying truth is not that you are trapped, but that you have been the jailer all along, feeding yourself the illusions, repeating the lies, clinging to the masks because freedom feels unbearable? Here, then, is the paradox that tears at the edges of your consciousness. To awaken is to risk everything that once made you feel safe, but to remain asleep is to abandon the possibility of ever truly living. So the great question confronts you now, sharp as a blade. Will you choose the comfort of sleep, or will you dare to awaken? The door is open, the veil is thin, the illusion is trembling. And in the next breath, we will step closer to the hidden force that keeps nearly all of humanity dreaming, why most people will never wake up. The world does not conspire to keep you asleep with obvious chains. No, its brilliance lies in its subtlety. The most effective prison is one whose bars are invisible, whose walls are disguised as comfort, and whose locks are made of your own unquestioned beliefs. Why does this force exist? Why does humanity drift through life half asleep, rarely piercing the fog? The roots are not simple. They reach into psychology, philosophy, and the machinery of society itself. The psychological cage. From the moment you are born, you are initiated into a web of meanings you did not choose. Your name, your culture, your values, all handed to you like clothing you never asked to wear. As a child, you absorb these patterns unquestioningly, because survival depends on belonging. If your tribe rejects you, you perish. This ancient truth lingers in your nervous system. Safety equals conformity. Carl Jung called this the persona, the mask you build to be accepted by others. But here's the danger. The longer you wear the mask, the more you forget it is a mask at all. You become what others demanded, and the authentic self, the wild, untamed voice of your soul, gets buried under years of obedience. And so, you play roles written long before you were conscious enough to resist them. You study what brings approval, not what awakens passion. You suppress emotions that make others uncomfortable. You shape your very identity, not by truth, but by expectation. The result? A self carefully constructed to survive in society, but hollow at its core. The philosophical roots. Nietzsche once declared, in individuals, insanity is rare, but in groups, parties, nations, and epochs, it is the rule. His warning was not about madness in the clinical sense, but about the madness of conformity. The way collective illusions are mistaken for reality simply because many share them. Society thrives on consensus, and consensus does not arise from truth, but from repetition. If a story is told often enough, it calcifies into common sense. You are taught what is normal, not because it is natural, but because it maintains the machinery of the collective. Schopenhauer saw life itself as saturated with suffering, and he believed people cling to illusions because they soften that unbearable weight. To him, existence was driven by a blind, irrational will, an endless hunger that never finds satisfaction. To awaken to this truth is to face despair. So people turn instead to distractions, ideologies, and comforts that keep the will hidden from view. And here lies a devastating paradox. Illusions are not mistakes in the system. They are the system. Without them, the fragile structure of human order would collapse. The social machinery. Think of Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. He did not imagine a dictatorship of fear, but of pleasure. People lulled into compliance, not through terror, but through distraction. Why rebel when the screen glows endlessly, when your cravings are met instantly, when your identity is constantly fed with validation and entertainment? The modern world does not silence you with chains. It silences you with noise. Infinite scrolling, infinite consumption, infinite distraction. Each moment you might have spent in self-reflection is swallowed by stimulation that feels urgent but leaves you empty. The result? You never face the silence long enough to hear your own truth. The inner complicity. But here is the hardest truth. The system is not the sole jailer. You conspire in your own imprisonment. Jean-Paul Sartre spoke of bad faith, the way people lie to themselves to avoid the terror of freedom. True freedom means you are responsible for every choice, every act, every omission. It means there is no one left to blame, no grand script to lean on. That weight is unbearable to most. And so, rather than embrace freedom, people choose the comfort of self-deception. You tell yourself you must live this way. You must chase this career, stay in this relationship, believe this story. Because to admit otherwise would mean admitting you are free, and that your life, as it stands, is chosen, not forced. And so the slumber continues, reinforced by a silent agreement. Do not wake, do not question, do not break the spell. The hidden fear. What is it that terrifies people about awakening? It is not just the loss of comfort. It is the death of identity. To wake up means watching the false self, the mask you spent decades building, crumble into dust. And without it, who are you? This is why Jung insisted that the journey of individuation, the process of becoming truly yourself, feels like death. Because it is a death. The death of the false. The death of illusion. The death of the comfortable dream. And few are willing to pay that price. Thus, the roots are laid bare. Psychological conditioning, philosophical illusions, social distractions, and your own complicity. Together, they weave a web so subtle, so complete, that most will never break free. But knowing the roots is only the beginning. The deeper tragedy lies not in why people sleep, but in what happens because they never awaken. And that is where we must go next. You may believe that sleep is harmless. After all, if everyone else is drifting along in the same dream, why resist? Why fight the current when the river carries you forward? But beneath this easy flow lies a devastating cost. The choice to remain asleep does not simply keep you comfortable. It shapes your destiny. It writes your life in invisible ink, a script you never authored, yet perform to perfection. The personal consequences. Think of the years already gone. How many of your choices were truly yours? How many dreams did you abandon because someone told you they were unrealistic? How many times did you silence your inner voice because it did not match the approved chorus of society? The tragedy of remaining asleep is not only the life you live, it is the countless lives you never lived. Neurology tells us that the brain wires itself through repetition. Each time you obey a script that isn't yours, you strengthen the neural pathway of conformity. You carve grooves into your mind that make rebellion feel foreign, almost impossible. Eventually, the authentic self, the child who once imagined, questioned, and reached freely, becomes a faint echo drowned out by the machinery of survival. And so, you age without ever truly growing. You gain experiences, but not depth. You achieve milestones, but not meaning. You are alive, yes, but only in the way a machine continues running when the switch is left on. The societal consequences, the slumber of individuals, becomes the sickness of civilizations. When masses conform, society drifts into collective illusions. Nietzsche's warning resounds here. Madness becomes the norm when the herd moves in unison. History shows it plainly. People cheered for wars they did not want. They obeyed laws they knew were unjust. They remained silent while cruelty reigned, not because they agreed, but because awakening would mean breaking ranks with the crowd. This is how atrocities unfold, not through the will of a few tyrants, but through the obedience of millions asleep. And today, the same patterns persist, only cloaked in subtler forms. You are not forced to comply by whips or prisons. You are seduced into compliance by convenience, comfort, and fear of exclusion. The invisible contract whispers, do not disturb the peace. Do not question the story. Do not risk being cast out. And so, entire generations drift, repeating mistakes, not because they are ignorant, but because they are asleep. The psychological consequences. Living in this half-conscious state comes at a heavy price to the soul. Carl Jung warned that what you refuse to confront in yourself becomes your fate. The shadow, the unacknowledged parts of your being, does not disappear simply because you ignore it. It leaks into your actions, your relationships, your society, This is why people project their own unacknowledged fears onto others, why nations find enemies everywhere, why individuals cling to scapegoats instead of truth. The sleep of one person becomes the nightmare of another. Unawakened, you repeat the same destructive patterns in love, in ambition, in community. You choose partners who mirror your wounds. You chase goals that leave you hollow. You construct identities that crumble with the slightest pressure. And through it all, you convince yourself this is just life. But it is not life. It is survival without awakening. The existential consequences. The heaviest price of all, however, is existential. To remain asleep is to live an entire life without ever truly meeting yourself. Imagine reaching the end of your days, only to realize you never lived as you. You lived as the echo of others, as the mask of culture, as the obedient child of an illusion. The tragedy of sleep is not that you die, it is that you never truly lived before dying. Viktor Frankl believed that meaning is not optional. It is the oxygen of the soul. Without it, people wither. Depression, despair, addiction, and emptiness thrive where meaning is absent. And meaning cannot be manufactured by illusions. It must be discovered in the raw confrontation with truth. But if you never awaken, you never make that discovery. You carry the ache of meaninglessness through every day, distracting yourself just enough to survive, but never enough to live. The silent agreement. And so, the cycle continues. Individuals asleep feed societies asleep. Societies asleep feed new individuals asleep. A circle with no beginning and no end, a wheel spinning endlessly through generations. The unseen consequence of never waking up is not only your own lost life, it is the inheritance of blindness you pass on to those who come after. You think you're only protecting yourself, keeping your head down, avoiding disruption. But every silence, every obedience, every mask becomes part of the dream passed forward, and the dream grows stronger with each repetition. Here, then, is the hidden cost. To remain asleep is to trade away not just your freedom, but the freedom of those who follow you. And yet, if this is the tragedy of sleep, then what of awakening? What does it mean to rebel against the script, to tear off the mask, to walk out of the dream? That is where we turn next. If the dream is this powerful, if its roots stretch into psychology, philosophy, and society itself, then how can anyone break free? The answer is not simple. It is not gentle. To awaken is not to be comforted. It is to be torn apart and remade. The rebellion begins where illusions end. The first step, seeing the chains. You cannot break what you cannot see. The rebellion begins with ruthless honesty. The willingness to face truths so unsettling that most people will spend their entire lives avoiding them. Jung wrote that enlightenment is not about imagining figures of light, but about making the darkness conscious. To rebel, you must first dare to confront the shadow, the hidden fears, wounds, and lies you have buried. It is not pleasant work. It is not glamorous. It feels like standing naked in front of yourself, unable to look away. But once you see the chains, the game changes. For what is seen can no longer be unseen. The courage to stand alone. Breaking free means stepping away from the crowd. And here lies the greatest fear. The herd provides safety, validation, belonging. To walk alone feels like death. Yet Nietzsche warned that the path of the higher individual is precisely this solitude, He wrote of the one who breaks from the herd as the wanderer, condemned to loneliness, but destined for authenticity. Society may call you mad, arrogant, or dangerous. But what is madness if not refusing to live in someone else's dream? Your rebellion will cost you. You may lose relationships that were built on illusion. You may lose the comfort of certainty. You may lose the easy applause of conformity. But in exchange, you will gain yourself. Counterintuitive freedom. Here is the paradox. Freedom is not about doing whatever you want. That is only another illusion, another mask. True freedom is about choosing consciously. It is about seeing the scripts handed to you, weighing them, and deciding which, if any, you will keep. Sartre called this the burden of freedom. Once you awaken, excuses fall away. You cannot say, "I had no choice." You cannot hide behind society's scripts. Every step becomes your responsibility. And though the weight is heavy, it is also the only weight worth carrying, because it is yours. This is why rebellion feels terrifying. But it is also why rebellion is sacred. The discipline of awakening. Awakening is not a single moment. It is a discipline. Every day, the dream will try to pull you back. Every day, society will whisper its promises of comfort. And every day, you must choose again. This is where practices come in, not as rituals of escape, but as weapons of clarity. Meditation, solitude, journaling, deep study. Tools that strip away noise and force you to meet yourself without distraction. Huxley once wrote that most people do not really want freedom, because freedom involves responsibility. But for those who choose it, discipline becomes the price of liberation. You learn to stand still when the world demands you run. You learn to question when the world insists you obey. You learn to listen inward when the world screams outward. The rebellion is not glamorous. It is slow, quiet, steady. But with each choice, each act of clarity, the dream loosens its grip. Learning from those who walked before. You're not the first to face this. History is full of wanderers who broke free. Socrates, condemned for asking too many questions. Nietzsche, ridiculed for challenging the morality of the herd. Jung, dismissed for daring to confront the unconscious. Frankl, surviving the concentration camps by clinging to meaning when everything else was stripped away. Each paid a price. Each walked alone. But each proved that awakening is possible, even in the darkest circumstances. Their lives are not instructions, but invitations. Not every path will look the same, but the spirit remains. Dare to rebel. Dare to awaken. Dare to carry the unbearable weight of truth. Rebellion as service. And here lies the final paradox. Though awakening begins as a solitary act, it does not end there. The rebel who frees themselves becomes a light for others trapped in the dream. Think of it this way. Each person who awakens weakens the spell of the illusion. Each individual truth fractures the collective lie. By living authentically, you not only reclaim your life, you offer others the courage to do the same. This is why rebellion matters. It is not only about your freedom, but about breaking the inheritance of blindness. It is about refusing to pass on the same dream that shackled you. The threshold. And so you stand at the threshold. Behind you lies the safety of the dream. Warm, familiar, suffocating. Ahead lies awakening, dangerous, uncertain, alive. The rebellion asks only one thing, that you choose. Will you remain in the sleep of the herd, or will you walk into the solitude of truth? Will you accept the mask, or will you endure the death of the false self to find what lies beneath? The rebellion is not easy, but it is possible. And if you dare to take that step, a final realization awaits, one that will not only shatter the dream, but redefine what it means to live it all. There comes a moment in every true awakening where the ground beneath you dissolves. The masks are gone, the stories are shattered. The comfortable illusions you once clung to no longer exist. At first, this feels like annihilation. But if you endure it, you discover the deepest truth. Awakening is not about becoming something new. It is about remembering what you always were. The collapse of the old self. The false self dies first. The persona, the roles, the carefully crafted image you projected to the world, they fall away like fragile paper burned by fire. This death feels violent, terrifying. Without the mask, who are you? Without the script, where do you stand? Yet here lies the paradox. Only when you lose everything false can you encounter what is true. Carl Jung described this confrontation as individuation, the process by which a person becomes whole by uniting the conscious and unconscious, the light and the shadow. The false identity shatters, but the deeper self, the timeless, unbroken core of your being, emerges from beneath the rubble. This is why awakening feels both like death and like birth. It is the death of illusion, but the birth of authenticity. Freedom beyond illusion. When you stand in this raw space, you see the machinery of society with clarity. The stories of success and failure, the games of power and belonging, they no longer define you. They are revealed for what they always were: constructs, human inventions, fragile scaffolding built on shifting sand. But the most shocking realization is this: the dream was never fully real, and yet it had real power because you believed in it. And now, because you no longer believe, it loses its hold. Nietzsche called this moment the revaluation of all values. What once seemed sacred is stripped bare. What once seemed terrifying is revealed as empty. You are free, but not because the world changed. You are free because your perception did. The burden and the gift. This freedom is not light. It is not easy. To awaken is to accept that life has no fixed meaning handed to you from outside. Sartre called this condemned to be free. The unbearable truth that nothing forces you, nothing excuses you, nothing saves you. At first, this feels crushing. But if you endure the weight, you discover the gift hidden inside. Meaning is not given. It is created. Viktor Frankl survived the horrors of the camps by grasping this truth. Even when stripped of everything, family, freedom, dignity, he realized that one freedom remained: the freedom to choose his response, to create meaning where none was offered. That freedom, he said, could never be taken away. This is the final rebellion, not against society, not against others, but against despair itself. Awakening a service. To awaken is not merely for yourself. The awakened life radiates outward. It becomes a mirror, a disruption, a spark in the slumber of others. Your courage to see through illusions gives others permission to doubt their own. Your refusal to live in the dream fractures the dream itself. In this sense, awakening is contagious. One soul that awakens weakens the spell for all. And so, the ultimate truth is not solitary. It is communal. Your liberation is bound to the liberation of others. The fierce tenderness of being alive. Awakening does not mean escaping pain. It does not mean transcending suffering. Life remains fragile, unpredictable, finite. But what changes is your relationship to it. No longer do you run from suffering or numb yourself with distractions. You face it, you accept it, and in this fierce acceptance, suffering itself transforms. It becomes not a curse, but a teacher, not an obstacle, but a doorway. The ultimate truth is this: life, in all its brutality and beauty, is enough. To awaken is to meet reality not with fear, but with tenderness. To see every moment, every breath, every fleeting experience as unbearably precious, because it will never come again. The invitation. And so you arrive here, at the end of the path and the beginning of another. You have seen the dream for what it is. You have glimpsed the prison that most will never escape. You have felt the weight of freedom, and you have tasted its fire. Now the choice remains, sharp as ever. Will you cling to the comfort of illusion, knowing it was never yours? Or will you embrace the fierce, luminous terror of truth and live as though you were truly alive? Most will never wake up. They will continue the dream, repeating the scripts, passing the mask to their children. They will laugh, consume, obey, and die, without ever meeting themselves. But you, now that you have seen, can never fully return. The door is open, the veil is torn, the choice is in your hands. Awaken. Dare to live without the mask. Dare to carry the unbearable weight of freedom. Dare to see life, not as a dream, but as the blazing, fleeting, infinite reality it always was. Because in the end, the greatest tragedy is not death. The greatest tragedy is to die without ever having lived.